husband yesterday, and I promise I'm not sexually harassing you. I'm sorry.
All right, we are now recording and we are at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. All impropriety ends.
Don't worry, I'll edit out whatever we didn't. So don't worry about it.
Devil face. Gonna give everybody a minute to come in from the waiting room. We'll get started shortly. Just a heads up as you come in, we are recording, so be mindful. If you do not want to be recorded, please make sure that you remain muted. You do not want to appear on camera, then you might want to block your camera. And remember, if you wouldn't want your mama to hear it, probably shouldn't say it. So somebody who was just saying things they wouldn't want their mama to hear. Thank goodness for editing. But my mama says things I wish my mama wouldn't say, so it evens out. All right, still got people coming in, so we will give it another minute or two. Oh, not gonna sneeze. All right, that number has stabilized, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome back to our 14th annual NOLA ILC Information Literacy Forum and our 5th online conference. We're so glad everyone could make it, and we're really excited about the lineup of presentations that we have this year. Please make sure that you are muted for our sessions. My name is Megan Lowe. I am the Director of University Libraries at Northwestern State University and a member of the NOLA ILC Executive Board. Our chat monitor today is also a NOLA ILC Executive Board member, Caitlin Cooper from Delgado. I'm going to take a moment to read our land acknowledgement and action statement. The New Orleans Information Literacy Forum would not only like to acknowledge the original inhabitants of our land, but also provide suggestions and links for others to show support of Native communities and causes. Our policy can be found at the link that can be provided in our link tree that Caitlin has dropped into the chat. Before we get to today's presenters, there are a couple of housekeeping matters we need to take care of. We will have 2 presentations and 2 lightning talks today. Presentations will last for about 30 minutes with 15 minutes for Q&A, and lightning talks will be 5 to 10 minutes with any time remaining left for Q&A. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and our chat moderator will keep track of them for the Q&A session afterwards. You can also use the chat box to let us know about any tech problems that you think may be originating on our end. Finally, in the chat box, we've also dropped that URL to our link tree, which includes links for our social media channels, the land acknowledgement and action statement, and other useful links. One final note, we are recording this presentation and sharing it with registered participants on our YouTube channel, and that will go up, I believe that goes live tomorrow. Today, we're honored to welcome Daniel DuPont, followed by Angelina Santana-Torres. The second half of today will start with Alessandra Otero Ramos and end with a lightning talk given by Daniel DuPont. Doing double duty today, Daniel DuPont. That's a lot of D's, and I love the alliteration. So today we're excited to start with Daniel DuPont's lightning talk. Another, why can't I just Google it presentation. Fake news, Gen AI, and the internet anger machine. Take it away, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. And I'm realizing I did not set that back to 0 from us practicing, so let me do that real quick before I start sharing. Come on. Okay. Okay. There we go. All right, so my name is Daniel DuPont. I am a librarian and assistant professor at Delgado Community College. Yeah. Oh, this is entirely me. I'm having an issue real quick. My screen sharing is paused. Don't worry, I will figure this out real quick. Keeps hiding my menu. Okay, there we go. So I'll be speaking to you about fake news, real consequences, recognizing reliable information resources. I know that I'm speaking very much to the choir here, because as librarians, you know this information, but I want to sort of give you some tools as you speak to patrons, students that you may not already have. So this is just a little bit about me. As I said, I'm a librarian and assistant professor at Delgado in New Orleans. I research how to best serve LGBTQ plus populations in libraries and in higher education. I have 3 cat children and 1 human child. I read just way too many books in 2024. I'm trying to chill out this year, but I'm at about 215, so apparently that's not happening. So we're going to start talking about why avocados should not exist, or at least why we thought they shouldn't.
But one of the most amazing things about avocados is that they still exist. See, they had a special relationship with huge beasts that lumbered around Central America tens of thousands of years ago. And when these animals went extinct, avocados could easily have gone down with them. While woolly mammoths chilled out in the north, ground sloths weighing 3 tons and armadillos the size of cars lived in the warm equatorial forests. These giant sloths and armadillos ate a lot of avocados. Their digestive systems would break down the tough skin and absorb the high-energy pulp. Then, the indigestible seed, which contains bitter toxins that kept the animal from chewing it up, passed right out the other end.
So if you're not familiar with this channel, it's SciShow. It's a YouTube channel on YouTube. It's a really great science explainer channel. If you're familiar with the Green brothers, John Green, Hank Green, this is one of Hank Green's things. Oh, there we go.
If you're a fan of avocados, and honestly, who isn't? You might have heard that they only exist thanks to prehistoric creatures called giant ground sloths. In fact, you may have heard that from us here at SciShow. That story goes something like this. Plants evolved to have fruit in order to attract animals so that the animals can then poop out the seeds somewhere further away, which helps them spread around. And unlike other fruit that has like dainty little pits, avocados have these big honking seeds, which means that avocados would have been spread around by like big honking animals that can swallow a whole avocado pit. Specifically, giant ground sloths. These were massive animals that roamed North and South America during the Pleistocene, and by golly, they would just go to town on these avocados and poop out those huge seeds everywhere. Sounds like it checks out, right? Well, it turns out we have no evidence that this is true. And while this myth has spread as far and wide as the avocado itself, it's worth unpacking how avocados got to be how they are in order to get to the tasty morsel of truth in the center.
So there's sort of a lot going on there that for a while we thought that avocados were spread. They still exist because of these giant animals. Which kind of makes sense if you think about it, sort of like an Aristotelian thing. Aristotle would sort of sit around and be like, oh, that makes sense. That must be why it's true. But we like to have evidence. In science, it's good to have evidence to support a hypothesis. And there's no evidence of it. One of the things you can do is if you look at coprolite, for instance, if you look at fossilized poop, there's no evidence of them having eaten avocados. If you look at megafauna, or at least ground sloth coprolite, there's nothing to show that they ever ate avocados. So where did this come from? Why did people start saying this? And why did a show like SciShow that really does a really good job of citing their sources for 8 years have a video up that said giant ground sloths are the reason we still have avocados before they came back and fixed it. So a term was coined called evolutionary anachronism. In 1982, two professors published a paper called Neotropical Anachronisms. And it was in the journal Science. It hypothesized megafauna as a means of dispersing large seeds. They drew conclusions based on observations of modern wild horses and personal communications with a paleobiologist at the time that they knew. In 2001, Connie Barlow published a book called The Ghosts of Evolution. She connected megafauna and avocados, particularly giant sloths. This wasn't a connection that was specifically made. Avocados were not mentioned in this paper from 1982. And she extrapolated the term evolutionary anachronisms from Jansen and Martin's paper, even though those conclusions weren't made or supported with evidence. But giant animals pooping out avocados gets clicks. So that book was published in 2001. Around 2015, 2016, millennials got really into eating avocado on toast. And so people started writing about that for sort of clickbaity articles. And the avocado was saved because it was pooped out by giant sloths, became a thing that people were talking about on the internet. And I heard about it a lot. I saw it a lot. I know a lot of people who did. I'm sort of starting to find out that it wasn't quite as widespread among the people, like among my friends, as I thought it might have been. But like, it's something that I heard a lot and was just sort of accepted as fact that giant sloths saved the avocado. And here are they sort of took a sort of like a snapshot. Yahoo News is sort of like a news aggregator. I don't really expect great news from them. Refinery 29, who cares? I think that's Mashable up at the top, whatever. But Atlas Obscura, they do good journalism. They do actual journalism. They should have known better. Smithsonian Magazine, I would expect better from them. At least educational content. Gizmodo, check your sources. Gizmodo does good journalism too sometimes. So these are people that I would have trusted. If Atlas Obscura posts something, if they publish something to their website or Gizmodo publishes something to their website, I would have accepted that as, at least relatively trustworthy. Smithsonian Magazine, I would have accepted that as educational content. So what does the science say? Avocados are from Mexico. Ground sloths mostly are not. There are three big families of ground sloths. You can see not Mexico, very much not Mexico as well. And here it's a little bit Mexico, but mostly they lived millennia apart, right as the Eremitharium were dying out. That's when the avocado was starting to really flourish there. So they were really just didn't overlap in the same place at the same time. The other thing about avocados that we know is that avocados have a giant pit. Wild avocados, before humans started cultivating them, had a pit about the size of a grape. It just it's not that big. It would not have needed an animal that large to disperse it. I can swallow something the size of a grape. Imagine if you've ever swallowed a cherry pit. Imagine swallowing 2 cherry pits. You could have swallowed an avocado pit. It would have been fine. So there's lots of evidence that we would not have needed an animal as large as that to disperse the avocados. And there's no evidence that they did disperse it. But we ended up with this sort of understood scientific fact that that ground sloths are the reason we have avocados. And it was so ubiquitous, it was just sort of like everybody, I think everybody knew. You just knew it to be true. So you might think I can just Google it. And that was one of the things with the avocados. You could Google it and you would find lots of sources. So this is one of my favorites. It's disgusting. What are the health benefits of nose picking? So Google does this thing now where it'll do featured snippets. And it finds what it thinks is the best article to answer your question. And it will give you a little snippet from the article that it thinks answers your question. So it says one study found that picking your nose and eating what you found helps prevent cavities, infection, and stomach ulcers. That's patently untrue because your fingers have these little vestigial claws at the end of them that even if you don't realize it, if you put them inside your nose and touch the delicate inside of your nose, you're abrading it and introducing more germs to it and increasing your likelihood of infection. So I clicked on that. It's a popular health news website, Sharp Healthcare. I clicked there. I found where that snippet came from, and it says one study even found the exact wording. So I found that study. It's from the National Library of Medicine. And you can see here, it says what they're talking about. So it's this MUC5B that's in some mucus. It may help protect teeth from cavity formation. Great. Further studies are needed to use RNA sequencing, and they need to fully characterize the mechanism. They don't understand what that mechanism is. And also it says, don't put your fingers in your nose, because that's just going to make things worse. So this is a science literacy exercise that I really like. I really like this because it really illustrates that popular science and peer-reviewed science are not the same thing. So this is an exercise that I'm hoping to get to do with science, with sort of a one-off info-lit science class. Browse through a popular scientific publication, such as the science section of the New York Times. Look for an article about a recent study published in a scholarly journal, and then look for the title. Look for the name of the author and when the original study appeared. And then once you've got that, see if you can find the primary source in your library's catalog. I've done this with a semester-long class, and I wasn't even really concerned if they could locate the entire article. I just wanted them to be able to get that annotation, I mean, not the annotation, get that sort of source back to the original article to see if they could know where it came from. Because I wanted them to understand that the popular science article that's sort of interpreting the science for a wider audience was not the end of that understanding of that science, that there was more behind that. And sometimes that popular science article is not doing the best job of understanding the science that's in the original scientific journal article. This is taking a second to load. So this is from an art from another like explainer YouTube, science explainer YouTuber YouTube channel called Kurzgesagt. And it's a really great channel. They do a really good job of explaining both sides of an issue. If they talk about GMOs or organic foods, like if they talk about climate change, there's not two sides about climate change, so they don't do that. But like GMOs or organic food or something like that, they'll talk about both sides of it, and they do really well with providing all of their sources, doing all of the research, contacting lots and lots of scientists or researchers or experts on a topic. And when they got something wrong, they did a year-long investigation into why they got it wrong, and then explained their process of how they figured out why they got it wrong and how they figured out what the correct answer was. So I'm gonna play you just a little bit of that.
Look at this fun fact. Did you know that your blood vessels taken together add up to 100,000 kilometers, enough to wrap them around the planet twice? One of our favorite fun facts used in our book and app and a video, and wait, 100,000 kilometers is like a lot. We've used it so often, but where did we get this number from? And how do we know it's true? Welcome to an epic research riddle that took us well over a year to figure out and led us on a strange and baffling journey. It began extremely innocently.
So this is another one of those sort of just accepted science facts that the total length of your blood vessels is 60,000 miles and could wrap around the Earth 2.5 times, which is crazy. And it was accepted as fact, and you can find citations referencing secondary sources for it. It's really difficult to find the primary source for it, but there's lots of citations referencing secondary sources. Kurzgesagt managed to track it back to a 1959 copy of Scientific American, which had a secondary source. They tracked it back to, which was a secondary source. They tracked it back to the original source, which was a 1922 book by August, I'm going to say Croft. Uh, he was the winner of the 1920 Nobel Prize in Medicine. He really played fast and loose with the estimates and assumptions that came up with a 60,000 number. Now, thinking about what was going on in 1922, people were really into things like eugenics in 1922. And he used the ideal man, what he thought of as the ideal man for this 60, for this number, this 60,000 number. And so this was a European man who was like 6'2", had like 3% body fat. His muscle mass was just off the charts. And that person, if that person exists, that person, their blood vessels are like 60,000 miles. I think the average person is much closer to like 9,000 miles if you were to do that, if it was something you could do. If you can't remove somebody's blood vessels and measure them. But if you could do that, the estimate would be much closer to 9,000. But so Dr. Croft wasn't wrong. He just presented it as, well, these are the facts, and was not as clear in explaining how he got to those facts. And then it was just accepted for 100 years that everybody has blood vessels, has this many blood vessels or this long of blood vessels in their bodies, and we just don't. So another reason why it's really difficult to Google for answers at this point is Google is giving you AI overviews, and they'll take several resources, a lot of different resources, a lot of different websites, and sort of combine them into one answer. So here are some of my favorites. Will lotion help my digestion? Yes, a topical lotion can help with digestion. And some of these, if you click on them, you can get to the better context of it and understand why it gave you this answer. So like if I click on this, will lotion help my digestion? It means that if I apply a lotion and sort of massage, yes, a topical lotion will help with my digestion. It does not mean to eat topical lotion. The way it seems to me is that if I swallow topical lotion, that it just makes everything smoother and I'll do much better. Eating aluminum foil is not considered harmful for the average healthy person. I asked, is eating raw aluminum foil safe? So the body absorbs aluminum from food, water, and medication, but most of it is eliminated in urine and feces. What it's talking about is if you wrap your food in aluminum foil and then remove the aluminum foil and eat food, it's going to be fine. But I asked, is eating aluminum foil safe? And it's like, yeah, that's safe. It's not considered harmful. Are sharks older than the moon? Yes, sharks are older than the moon. Now, the answer it gives me is the earliest fossil evidence of sharks is 450 million years, and the moon is estimated to be at least 4.46 billion years old. So it gives me a correct answer. I just have to read down further, then yes, sharks are older than the moon. I don't know why it gives me the answer of yes, sharks are older than the moon. I'm assuming it thinks that 450 is a larger number than 4.46, and it's not reading the million and the billion. And then how long ago was 1919? This one's great. 1919 was about 20 years ago, or in 1939, which makes no kind of sense. This is the problem with AI can be a good tool. There's lots of sort of issues with AI that go along with, is it ethical right now? But there are positives to AI. AI can do good work, but AI a lot of times does not understand context. AI can be bad for understanding context when it's reading just information, when it's just fed information. And here it's giving you sources. I've been looking at Perplexity a little bit. Perplexity will give you the sources. So you can go through and find why it's giving you these answers it's giving you. But if you're just looking at the answer and not digging down further, it can be really misleading. So why is this a problem? So generative AI, it learns on the publicly accessible web content. It's of varying quality. It includes bias, racist, sexist, homophobic, etc., which is part of the ethical issue. Simple facts can be reproduced incorrectly if there are errors in the data. or the AI misunderstands the context of the data, such as sharks are older than the moon, which I think is it's misunderstanding the context there. And here's an issue where news is being written by Chat GPT. It's being written, news is now being written by AI chatbots. There are entire websites of this. This is one example, or two examples really, on a group of websites, a connected group of websites, that there are still people writing on these websites, but these are example articles that were written by AI. These were two in 2023, a day apart. The 15 most valuable professional sports franchises on Deadspin. And Deadspin is a good, reliable website for sports, web for sports reporting. Teams were listed out of order and information was out of date, omitting more valuable teams. Why? Don't know. And Gizmodo I like Gizmodo. Gizmodo is a great website. A chronological list of Star Wars movies and TV shows, put works in the wrong order, omitted shows and films. And this was something people who worked on the website did not know this was happening. The journalists who work on the website, they were surprised when this stuff went up. And it was just the Chat GPT just did a bad job of the article. It was probably given the wrong parameters, wasn't given the correct information, and it made mistakes. But it's presented as these are facts, this is the news. And it was, the byline for it did say that it was like an AI, it was like Gizmodo AI, or it was Gizmodo chat bot or something. But if you did not look at that, you would think that this was a person. And if you didn't know more of the information, you might think this was correct and then cite it somewhere else as these are correct, this is the correct order, these are the most valuable sports franchises, if you're writing a paper on, spending in sports. And you could also look at how both articles contained repetitive language. So they were trying to hit a word count. Word count and keyword density are important for search engine optimizations, for getting clicks on these websites. So there's some models for evaluating information, and including on TikTok. The CRAAP method we're all familiar with. The ACT UP model, I really like that one. It talks about how we all have a responsibility to fact check before we retweet or repost, so that people who are following us are reading accurate and reliable information. Acting up means to act in a way that is different from normal or what is generally accepted. And it means to actively engage in dismantling oppressions and acting upwards to create a more socially just system. So the ACT UP model looks at who wrote the resource, how current is this resource, how accurate is the information, is it intended to persuade, and who is missing in the conversation. So one of the big takeaways from this is the author qualified to speak on the topic? Looking back and seeing who is this person, this is something that would help with those sort of like AI articles. Can you find who this person is? Can you find information on them? Can you find a LinkedIn page? What else have they done? Does this person exist? And I wanted to show you what a website domain looks like. So you can see, here's the domain name. The top level domain is the .com. Here's the domain name, and there's the subdomain, and then you have the file path. So here's an example of one that is definitely not PayPal, because you can see over here, paypal.com.security.alert. Blah, blah, blah. This is all a subdomain. The actual domain is here, confirmation-manager-security.com. Now, it sure does look like it was paypal.com, but if it's confirmation-manager-security.com, you know that this is not PayPal. This is why, we see phishing, we see those sorts of spam emails, and they're like, you'll get something from your institutions like, do not click on, don't click. It's because you're clicking into something like this. This is something I wanted to look at. This is talking about who that author is, who is and what's their purpose for creating the information. So this was something from the January 6th, insurrection riot at the Capitol. And this was somebody who was posting about breaching the Capitol. He says, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Thousands, police can't stop them. And lots of people were retweeting it and like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And they were sort of uplifting this person. thinking that this person was against it. And then somebody was like, hey guys, no, look, this guy thinks that this is great. He's like, thousands of police can't stop him. It's great. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I love it. And so it's keeping in mind what is the reason that this person is sharing this information, because you may be amplifying something that you don't necessarily agree with. I think in this case, these are just sort of statements of fact. So it's probably okay, but you are sort of boosting this person's profile and maybe giving greater weight to something else they might say in future, which maybe you're fine with that, maybe you're not. That's between you and whoever. But keeping in mind, when you are sharing something on the internet, who are you sharing from? What are they saying? Is it true? Is it responsible to share this? So how current is the resource? Has the resource been superseded by new information? Using outdated research to back up a claim is lazy and irresponsible. If you know that there is something that disagrees with what you're posting, when you post it anyway because it supports your point, that is irresponsible. It's just bad. People do that sometimes. It's easy to fall into that trap because it feels so good to be right on the internet. It feels so good. But keep in mind that there may be new information. When was the information published or posted? And sometimes your topic doesn't require current information, and that's fine too. And how accurate is the information? Even information presented at a reputable site can include bad research or inaccurate data. There's lots of ways that we can look for that. Look for ways that we can tell, is this reputable, like spelling, grammar, typographical errors. We know those things. But like I was talking about SciShow, which is a YouTube channel that I really trust, and Kurzgesagt, which I think is great. I bought merch from Kurzgesagt. They both made mistakes. So even information presented at a reputable site can include bad research. And unbiased, is the information intended to persuade? Why is it there? What's the purpose of it? Is it fact, opinion, propaganda? Does it contain words to evoke an emotional response? Think about maybe it's being presented as fact, but is there a slight to it? Is there a slant on it that you think is trying to make it seem like it's trying to get you over to a certain point of view? And this is, I'm on load. Okay, so this is really, really pressing. This is going to speak on the two really quick, short little videos that talk about how it's really helpful for social media to keep you angry because it keeps you engaged. Just showing you things you like that you don't disagree with don't keep you engaged in the on their website. The longer you stay on the website, the more ads they sell you, and the angrier you are, the longer you'll stay on the website.
Thought germs can burn out because once everyone agrees, it's hard to keep talking and thus thinking about them. But if there's an opposing thought germ, an argument, then the thinking never has to stop. The disagreement doesn't have to be angry, but again, angry helps. The more visible an argument gets, the more bystanders it draws in, which makes it more visible, which is why every group from the most innocuous internet forum to the national conversation can turn into a double rage storm across the sky in no time. Wait, these thought germs aren't competing, they're cooperating. Working together, they reach more brains and hold their thoughts longer than they could alone. When opposing groups get big, they don't really argue with each other, they mostly argue with themselves about how angry the other group makes them. We can actually graph fights on the internet to see this in action. Each becomes its own quasi-isolated internet sharing thoughts about the other. You see where this is going, right? Each group breeds thought germs about the other, and as before, the most enraging, but not necessarily the most accurate, spread the fastest.
So the point of social media is not necessarily always to present accurate information, but to present engaging information. And I like this quote down here. If you want to maintain a healthy brain, it pays to be cautious of thoughts that have passed through a lot of other brains and that poke you where you are weakest. So again, is the information unbiased? Remember, online search engines tailor results to your previous online activity, and social networks display stories that will get your clicks. Point of Google, the point of Bing is not to give you the correct answer or the correct information or the best resource. The point is to give you the resource that you are going to like the most and will click on because they want you to keep using their service. If they show you a bunch of things where you're like, no, I don't want to click on any of these, you'll end up using something else. You'll end up using another service, and that's not what they want. And so the last one is privilege. Who is missing in this conversation? Are there inherent biases that are keeping people out of the conversation? Are there any other people who write, publish, or create content about this that are missing? Check the privilege of the creators. And then this is my favorite thing, the cafe advice. I think about this all the time. Challenge information, demand accountability, adapt your skepticism and requirements for equality. Sometimes you need information to be like super accurate and good. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's just not that important. File new information in your mind rather than immediately believing or disbelieving it, and evaluate and reevaluate regularly. I love this file thing. Sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, you know what, that could be true, but I don't have enough information to believe or disbelieve it right away. So before I change how I think about a topic, I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind and remember that, and then reevaluate as I go along. So just here is more information about those, but I like it is fine to simply remember someone claims XYZ to be true. You don't need to worry about believing or disbelieving the claim right away. Avoid premature closure. Don't come to a decision too quickly. Wait until more information comes in. And evaluate and reevaluate regularly. New information and changing circumstances affect the accuracy of previous information. Recognize the dynamic and fluid nature of information. Things are constantly changing. What seemed true a week ago or yesterday may be different today. And so that's me. This is the website to all of my presentations, including this one. And this QR code will get you straight to this presentation.
All right, excellent. Do we have any questions? I don't think I saw any, but a lot of good and entertaining discourse in the chat. A lot of good feedback there too. We all agree that the 1980s were just 20 years ago, so that is something that we can absolutely all believe when the internet tells it to us. Any questions from anybody? I'm gonna leave it open just for a second. You're just getting a lot of praise, Daniel. Just lots
that's
and lots
great.
of
Thank you.
praise. All right, just a great presentation all around. Everybody agrees that it was a great presentation all around. Okay, so next we will have, oh yes, Caitlin has dropped the feedback link in the chat. So this is the feedback link for all of today's presentations. If y'all would complete that, we'd really appreciate it. Daniel, let's see, let me get your link because it only went to the panelists and hosts. Here is Daniel's URL in the chat for everybody. So we are now going to move on to our lightning talk. Our lightning talk is from Angelina Santana-Torres, Inclusive Teaching in Library Instruction. So Angelina, take it away.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Angelina, and I'm really excited to be here today. I'm currently an instructional librarian at City Colleges of Chicago, and I really just focus on helping students and faculty navigate just our library system in general. Let's see if we get this up. Okay, perfect. Here's just a little bit of information about me. I went to Marquette where I got my bachelor's and then my master's from Dominican University here in Illinois. So inclusivity in academic libraries really just means creating spaces, services, and collections that are accessible, equitable, and welcoming to all users, regardless of their background, their abilities, or their identity. It involves removing barriers that prevent students and researchers from fully engaging with library resources. For students, This creates a welcoming classroom, whether it's in person or virtually, where everyone, regardless of their experience or ability, can feel empowered to access resources. And for faculty, it enhances collaboration and teaching effectiveness. Faculty really depends on the library for curriculum support. And when our libraries prioritize accessible instruction methods, and when we highlight diverse resources, faculty can introduce students to resources like different databases and research guides with a broader perspective. Here's just a brief agenda for today. I'm just going to go over understanding student barriers, creating an inclusive space in our classrooms, and developing inclusive instruction strategies. So before we can start discussing methods for instruction, we have to understand some of the barriers students may be facing. And depending on our different type of institutions, every class we teach will have students dealing with different concerns in their personal life, and that's really going to affect them academically. One of the main barriers I've found that students face are commitments outside of school. Many of our students are juggling, work schedules, family responsibilities, and just other basic life commitments. And it makes it difficult for them to visit the library in person. And that also is a barrier for them reaching out for research help. We have to remember these students deserve the same access to information and support. And in many cases, the best way we can reach out to them is during classroom instruction. So just considering working students, many students are balancing full-time or even part-time jobs while pursuing their degrees. And those jobs usually happen during standard library hours. So if a student's only free time is late at night when research librarians are unavailable, or maybe between shifts, we have to make sure they know how to still access research materials. Same goes for students who may have caregiving responsibilities. They need flexible ways to use resources without having to sacrifice their personal responsibilities. And this is where we can really show students and prove to them that our inclusive ways aren't just about who can walk through the doors. It's about anyone who needs access, no matter where they are. And then another barrier that I've noticed, especially in my institution, is a digital divide. So not all students have reliable internet access, or in some cases, even a personal device. They may be relying on just outdated technology. And in some cases, they have to share computers in the library, which can make it really difficult for conducting research. So without having this equal access, students are already disadvantaged before they even begin their research. And sometimes there's also an issue with exposure to digital resources. Many of our academic databases and websites, and even just basic online learning platforms, are not designed with accessibility in mind, especially for students who may have zero experience navigating them. This is where creating an inclusive learning environment really comes into play. An inclusive learning environment and library instruction ensures that all students, really regardless of their background or abilities, feel welcome and valued and just know that they're supported. One of the most important things that we have to remember is that students sometimes feel intimidated by complex terminology or even just unfamiliar jargon that we know because we studied it in school, but it's all brand new to them. So we want to make sure we're using natural language in library instruction. It's going to really make the information accessible and relatable and just overall engaging for students. So when they hear clear and conversational explanations, they're going to feel more comfortable asking questions and applying what we're teaching them into their own research. So the thing with that is sometimes there will be phrases that we can't replace. So, peer reviewed or abstract, just because that's fundamental to research. So in these cases, all we can really do is take a couple of extra seconds to explain what we mean so students have a better understanding. And then academic research can feel really overwhelming sometimes, especially when students are faced with really complex databases and maybe unfamiliar catalog systems and even our research tools. So what we can do as librarians is demystify our library resources. That way every student, regardless of their experience level, can navigate our tools and resources with confidence and really effectively. One thing that comes up is students struggling when using the academic sources and just searching for them because they don't really understand how a database works. So by breaking down search strategies into more simple and approachable terms, we can really empower our students to find the information they need without frustration. And then another challenge sometimes is just catalog navigation. Students don't know how to locate physical books. Maybe they don't know how to request interlibrary loans or even access our digital archives. So if library instruction offers practical hands-on demonstrations, students can gain the confidence to explore resources independently. So that leads on to hands-on learning. It's really, really essential in instruction. It allows students to practice research skills with direct support. It reinforces confidence and understanding in real time. So instead of passive instruction, hands-on learning is going to engage students through interactive activities. It's going to make everything feel more approachable. And this method really moves beyond theory for students. They're not just hearing about research strategies, they're actually applying them. And it'll take something that can feel really intimidating when you're just listening to it and make it just more or just less intimidating in general. So it's going to help students gain skills that will benefit them beyond the classroom. So here's a few of the instruction hands-on activities that I've used and that other librarians at my institution use. Students really find them useful, and it is giving them the experience that they're going to need moving forward in research. Another powerful way for us to show support to students is by building trust. When students feel comfortable approaching librarians for guidance, they're more likely to return for help. So we want to be approachable. Students should feel welcome and not intimidated when asking for assistance. And we should also show genuine interest in their academic journey. That's going to create an environment for students where they feel encouraged to ask questions. They're not going to avoid us. And then another thing is making sure that we're being consistent with students. We want to make sure they're receiving thoughtful, patient, and personalized guidance every time they visit the library. And we have to remember that a single positive interaction can make the difference between a student returning for help or just struggling alone. And one of the final things we can do is just encourage lifelong engagement. So libraries and librarians, we're lifelong academic partners. So we're going to be here to support our students throughout their educational journey. And just by encouraging students to engage with library resources, it's going to help them build critical skills, give them, research confidence and information literacy. And that's going to serve them for years to come, both in their academic journeys and just outside of school, maybe at work, in their personal lives, wherever. Okay, so you have some ideas and you want to put them into practice. What you can really do is develop policies to promote inclusivity in library instruction. And you have to be thoughtful and take a structured approach. So here's just like a basic strategic framework to guide the process. I found that following this really helped a lot. So some key takeaways. Just remember to understand that our students have barriers, and just knowing that is going to be the first step in creating meaningful change. And when we recognize these obstacles, we're going to empower students to overcome them with our support. We also want to be active in our students' learning. We want to embrace natural language, ensuring our communication is clear and inviting. Demystify our resources just by breaking down complex systems so every student feels capable. And use hands-on learning to take abstract concepts and really bring them in life and make them experiences for the students. And that's going to reinforce engagement. And then lastly, we want to make sure we're building trust with our students. That's going to help create relationships, and that'll lead to more curiosity and research and give the students a sense of belonging, both in the library and in our institutions and just within academia as a whole. Okay, so thank you guys. And if you have any questions or want to, talk in general, you can reach out. Here's my email. And well, thanks.
It looks like we actually have a question. That was a great presentation. Thank you. And we do have a
Thanks.
question from Loretta in the chat. Going back, I believe, to talking about jargon, wouldn't it be better to teach students those terms and get them used to them rather than not?
For me, I found that it really just depends on the class too. Sometimes it's easier to give them the definition of what it is first and then follow up by the term. And then other times just using the easier language. So one thing that I always remember is I had been using the term stacks with students because that's just what we call them as librarians. And it wasn't until I was giving a tour after my instruction that a student was like, oh, stacks, it's just a bookcase. And then I realized, I wasn't giving, or the students weren't able to really follow along with what I was saying. It created a little bit of a barrier because I had used the term stacks instead of bookcases. So if you have the time and the ability to, it's definitely worth doing both.
We have another question as well from Beth. Beth says, one barrier I have hit is, particularly with freshmen, is that peer-reviewed research can go over their head a bit. Concepts that they may not hit until they are juniors or over. How do we help guide them through an article that may be aimed at a professional or a PhD in the field without feeling discouraging or without the experience being discouraging to them? That's a great question, Beth.
Yeah, there really is. Doing the hands-on activities is really going to help with that. Especially, there's something I do. It's not just me. It's just like a well-known activity, but it's the article autopsy, where you're breaking down each of the different aspects of an article for students. So while they won't need that information for a few years, just giving them like a brief overview and showing them in general how to find it and just a simplistic definition of what peer-reviewed is should be good for them. And then hopefully, if you have built like a good relationship with them, they'll come back to you when they are juniors and be able to follow up with more information.
David Duggar in the chat made a really good observation, and I have to giggle about it. And that is, one term we have had to realize is that students come talking about renting things from the library rather than checking them out. And like, part of that grinds my gears. And then part of me is like, yeah, I mean, pretty much. Missy Murphy adds that like renting equipment and renting rooms, like that's a concept that we hear, renting an apartment. The fact that it's free blows their mind and they have to think of it as renting because that's the those are the other contexts in which they take something on temporarily. Brandy also adds that, and that was causing confusion at her library because of the library versus the bookstore. Yeah, we get that here too. And then a lot of people bet that rent their textbooks. So I think that your point, Angelina, about helping them learn the language and then being aware of their inexperience with the language is helpful. Do we have any other questions? This is some great conversation. I love this. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, so we will move on to our second presentation of the day from Alessandra Otero Ramos, Assessing Multimedia in Film Studies, a Critical Exploration. That's what I have in my script, by the way. A lot of these titles have been deviating, so normie, pay attention to their slides, and I'm now going to turn it over to Alessandra.
Thank you so much, Megan. Hi, everybody. I just want to make sure you are seeing my slides right now, like transforming entertainment into inquiry. Agree? Yeah? Well,
we are there. You are
yeah,
good.
perfect. Thank you so much. So, as you said, my name is Alessandra Otero Ramos. I'm a research instruction librarian at Mill Library in SUNY Geneseo. And I am the liaison to different programs that include English, art history courses, philosophy, music, and theater. But also, I am liaised to minor programs such as the film study programs and also the Black study programs. And this presentation comes from my experience with the film studies program, because when we are talking about film, we are talking about visual communication. And I think the approach to these, either, when we approach research, it is similar in certain things, but we need to include a little bit about visual literacy and how you read information as an image, right? And what else I can tell you about myself? Yeah, on the side, I have a creative practice and I have a background in art history. So I really enjoyed a lot, like having the opportunity to share my insights about visual literacy and how is it that we are bombarded with so much visual information that sometimes we are not aware of it and we just give it for granted and don't think critically about it. So anyways, let's just start. So today I'm going to be covering a little bit about like why shifting the approach for film study assignments, and also guiding how to guide the students to evaluate multimedia content. And I'm going to be talking about using as an example my experience as embedded librarian to the course film study course about Raoul Peck, which is an actor and a director from Haiti. And key takeaways of supporting students to analyze and reflect and make questions when they are watching movies. So my thinking is the following. So we all love movies, and who hasn't watched movies at home or in theater with friends, families, just to relax from the stress of the day, right? So if you can just put an emoji in the chat, I will appreciate that, because I'm pretty sure most of us agree with this. Like, we watch movie, we watch stuff for entertainment, right? Let me see. Well, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, perfect.
Alessandra,
Yeah.
I'm not sure everybody has abilities to do emojis.
Oh.
So just in case.
Okay. Oh, maybe you can write something like, hello, yes, sure. All right, perfect. So for many of us, including juniors and senior students, TV shows and movies hold cherished and memories as a sort of entertainment. However, when we engage with film for a film study course, our perspective should shift from simple enjoyment to a deeper critical analysis. And when I come to these classes, this is where I start with students, because I get from the students that they are, oh, I took this course because it's going to be fun to watch a movie. And I say, like, yeah, but it's not just about the fun. Also, you need to start thinking critically about, first of all, your assignment prompt, what the professor is asking you to do. And also, once you know that, how is it that you're going to start identifying the topics? What is it that you need to take a look at the things you need to evaluate from a film? So I think entertainment remains a valuable aspect of the experience, but it is essential to acknowledge that the primary focus is not that. Is analyzing the various elements that contribute to the art of filmmaking and the assignment objectives. So from entertainment to analysis, my idea is like when you are doing the distinction between entertainment viewing and critical viewing can be understood in terms of analysis and purpose. Entertainment viewing prioritizes enjoyment and emotional engagement, allowing viewers to experience immediate pleasure without extensive analysis. For example, I just recently watched Happy Gilmore 2 on Netflix. Near the end of the movie, Oscar expressed that he wants to open a Dominican, Italian, Cuban, and Puerto Rican restaurant. From the entertainment point of view, I laughed. I found the character charming and endearing. The phrase resonated with me, and I felt identified with the character because it's played by Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican urban musician. And I'm Puerto Rican, and I can relate with his with his small acting parts in these movies, and also with his music, right? In contrast, critical viewing encourages deeper engagement by analyzing and evaluating media content. This approach fosters an awareness of biases, understanding of techniques used in the film, and interpretation of underlying messages, ultimately enhancing educational and artistic appreciation. I mean, I'm not expecting for the student to do all of this, but at least to have an awareness of different ways in which they can understand or evaluate a movie. So from the critical viewing perspective, the same scene I just talked about, Happy Gilmore, can serve as a starting point for exploring immigration and cultural diversity topics. Additionally, it can be analyzed from the viewpoint of the actor who portrayed Oscar, considering why he chose this role and what underlying message it conveys. We can also examine the reasons behind the photography director's choice of color palette too. So there's more about that than simply just watching something to enjoy yourself or unwind when you get from a really stressful day at home. I think embracing both forms of viewing can enrich our media experiences and broaden our understanding. I mean, it's not that one is better than the other, but I do think creating awareness of how you can approach a film is important for the student to understand what is it that they need to do in a course like this. It's not just about enjoyment. It's also about expanding and thinking critically about the way you watch a movie. So, why visual literacy? Well, reading what we see. Visual communication is a process of sending and receiving messages using images, and I think we are bombarded with it every day. Like when we are driving on the road, we have everything, all the signs are there, you know, like transit signs, then you have the license plates of the car, then the color of the car, the logos of the brand of the car, all of that is telling us information. And we see that every day. It's just that I don't think we always have the bandwidth to think about what is it that this is telling me now. So visual literacy is really important. I think it's not just only in the classroom, but also it's gonna be important for the person to apply that in everyday life. Visual literacy is defined as the ability to construct meaning from visual images, as simple as it is. And I use visual literacy because when we talk about film are a sequence of still images. That's what make it move, right? So if you think this way, yes, even though we have just froze a scene of a movie, that's still images and it's giving us a lot of information. Sorry, I'm talking, I feel like I'm talking too much. And okay, so helping students evaluate multimedia, moving beyond the checklist. I usually, after I talk to the student about the difference between entertainment and critical thinking, I talk about like multimedia and what we refer with multimedia, which is like film and video audio resources. And that students are encouraged to select for their papers. Choosing these resources will enhance their research and deepen their overall understanding of the topic they have chosen from the assigned films. Evaluating multimedia involves assessing the assigned film, in this case, in these courses that I have worked with, and then select video or audio resources that support their argument. And this is another thing I encourage students to, because also these film study courses usually are for upper level classes. So when the students come here, they think they need to cite just written papers, which is something academia does a lot. We give a lot of value of the information that is in black and white, written, and a lot of value of papers. So when you are talking about looking for multimedia to, I don't know, explore a topic on a film, especially you want to know what is the point of view of the director or the actor, you need to rely on interviews and movie reviews. And these are popular sources. And nowadays, movie reviews and interviews are not only written in a newspaper, they come in podcasts, they come like you have the audio too. So that's why I make sure to let them know what multimedia means and how you can find this information in another formats, not just only the written part. And in that terms, you are not tied only to the databases that we have in the library. Also, you can explore Google and you need to explore YouTube because there's a lot of information there. But again, how do we evaluate those sources so you are finding information that it is reliable or has authority in the topic? So, all right. So some key questions that I asked them, it is like they should consider the artistic element, historical content, and ideological messages of either the film they are studying or the multimedia they are going to be citing for their papers. All right. So oh yeah, so usually for these courses, a student receive like a film list or they assign a specific film, and either way, they need to choose from a list of films and in order to start like doing background research about their topic. And I give them like a step-by-step process, but I always tell them not to follow it like linear because research is not linear, it comes back and forth. And things to consider when you are talking about film or videos on YouTube, it is like you need to find quality multimedia and reviews. And by quality, I let them know, make sure that you can you can have captions for it because it will save you a lot of time to cite specific like clips from the movie. And for that, we have a couple of databases that video databases that they can use that have these transcripts and captions, how do you call that? Features, so they can use for their papers. If not, then to make sure that in YouTube you can like activate the captions as well. And it is important that they analyze the director vision and style because, as it was mentioned earlier, we were talking about bias information. And well, the directors always have a point of view, right? So make sure what is that point of view, what information is being left out in order for you to be critical about the topic that you chose from that movie. And also, it's very important to consider the historical and cultural context, not the one represented in the movie, but also the director and the context in which that director lived, because it will tell you a lot of why those topics were chosen to be projected in that medium, right? And of course, I encourage them to find and evaluate scholarly sources. But again, I need to like convince them that it's okay to use popular sources because reviews are not scholarly sources most of the time. And they will find those like at the New York Times, newspapers, and these kind of popular sources, right? So my case study, I already told you that I teach a film study course that it is called Stolen Images from Raoul Peck. This is an advanced seminar, and I collaborate directly with the faculty to create like instructions and workshop for the student to evaluate sources and also to start learning about how to look at the movies like in a different way. So the main objective of the course is like examining the work of Raoul Peck and with a focus on storytelling and cinematic approach. Students then are assigned 4 movies and they need to select one of those movies and analyze the whole thing. Here's the thing, another thing I also encounter with the students, it is like they think they need to become cinematographers. So I need to make a distinction between what is a film study course here, like Geneseo, and what is to be enrolled in a filmmaking course. So even though it sounds like a similar thing, it's different because here they are not movie makers. They are gonna be analyzing the movie in order to choose a topic and think how that topic is relevant to whatever research questions they have. So the most important thing is like after they know what they need to do with the assignment, they need to find and evaluate sources, especially visual media, and they need to locate credible reviews when researching this filmmaker and this work. And since this filmmaker is from Haiti and also have a background in Nigeria, I also encourage them to find like newspaper from Nigeria and Haiti in order to find other points of view of their work. And yeah, my instructional approach is very simple. I create a research guide for this class, and also I have a research guide that is more general for the film study courses. And then the in-class workshops or library instructions, I try them. Our library instruction department is very focused on active learning, so I always try to make them do research in class so I can guide them in how to think about their subject and have a hands-on experience so they can if they have questions at the moment, I can help them right away. So the most important thing for me is that they are engaging in analysis, and I'm just gonna show really quick. I don't know how much time. I still have 15 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna show you some of the slides from one of the classes about evaluating multimedia that I provided last semester. And I just want to walk you through, I'm not going to give you the whole thing, of course, but just walk you through about what are the learning objectives, what the focus on multimedia. Earlier, we were talking about here about the jargon in libraries, but also there are jargon in other disciplines and departments too. And I think it is important that they get used to some terms. So for me, giving some definitions, like I start like say, this is multimedia, which is what you do when you consume content from YouTube and these kind of things. But just for you to know, in academia, we name it this way. So they can get used to also these kind of like terms. And then I gave them like an example of like interview types. Specifically for this course, it's very encouraged that the student cite interviews from the director. So what is called my attention is like, again, nowadays, the interviews can be videos, can be audio videos. Here, this is an interview from NPR. They have the audio, but it's also written. So this is a multimedia source because it's relying on the two types of format to deliver the information. So I explained to them where to find this kind of information and what is the difference between like audio, articles, and video. So they have an idea of the different ways information can be presented. So, and then this is something we all know already, like evaluating the source of credibility. And I give them like a little bit of like a starting point, but I also encourage them to find their own criteria to evaluate sources because they already do that. I mean, they do that daily. It's just that they are not aware of it. Every time they consume content, they select what accounts they are going to be following, what newspapers they are going to be reading. So they have an idea of how to select those. So I try to make the exercise in class that you tell me now what other things we can add to this criteria list to evaluate sources. And after, like analyzing content and telling them, giving them some like some method of note taking when they're watching the movie, I just let them know where they can where they can go to find information specifically for this one. Like I talk about like African and diaspora cinema sources. They can consult for this, collect digital library collections. They can consult to find more information. And also I talk to them about different approach to find information because sometimes we are talking about like I just want to find information like an interview from NPR, right? And I don't find anything, but you don't need to use just the title of the movie in order to find information. If you already know the name of a critic that is an expert in this area, you can also use those names to find more information about your topic. So different ways in which you can expand or broaden the results for your paper. And then there's an activity in which I include like very short clips from YouTube, and I walk them through, this is not it, through this worksheet where they, with a peer, they work together to analyze the video, analyze the thesis statement, and think about what is lacking here, what could be added, and where I can find more information about this. All right, so I'm gonna stop there. And yeah, this is a little chart that I've been developing like with the students in these classes, like what are for them to think about how to select the right sources. Like I always tell the student but it's because I think it's easier for me to approach it this way. Like, what is the source type and format? Like, are you looking for a scholarly or a popular source? And this will give you an idea on what collection you're gonna be looking information. And you're looking for an article, video, audio, or a combination of the three or more formats. Also accessibility, captions, I want paywall free information, and who's publishing, of course, who is the author, who is the publisher, what is their intention. And then these are visual elements relevant to the film study that I let them know that these are things they can consider when watching a movie, like what is the issue? And then I give them like a couple of questions where they can, guiding questions, like what is the message of the image? How is the way the issue is shown in the image similar to or different from how you see this issue in the world? And I said image because I mentioned earlier, like a film is a sequence of still images. And then focus on the information. Where has the information in the image come from? What information presented here is factual, manipulated, or framed? How it's framed? And what people are depicted in the image, and these kind of things like the who, right? But they can add questions to these criteria too. So finally, practical strategies for librarians. How can we help? Well, I mean, critical viewing, everyday thinking. I think visual literacy fosters the development of critical thinking skills. One way we can help is just creating awareness about this, like talking about, there's a visual language out there. We don't need to be expert in visual literacy. Actually, ACRL has a whole framework about visual literacy. But I don't know, I think just connect them with the term visual literacy just to create curiosity to see if in the future they will start thinking about, hey, what is all this information with all these logos, all these things that I watch every day and I don't know what they mean, or I do know, but I don't think about it, And then I think the most important thing we could do is to engage a student in critical thinking and question everything that they are exposed to. From the librarians support is like, one of the things I do is like I provide a list of free and licensed streaming databases through a research guide, incorporate visual literacy strategies and evaluation tips within the research guides, and also offer instruction and support for analyzing and interpreting visual content. So I hope. Yeah. So before I end up, I have this Padlet for you. If you can scan the QR code and tell me what will you try? Like, you can be creative. You can try whatever one of the things that I said, or make a comment about this presentation, or suggest some other stuff you would try in order to do this. In order to teach visual literacy to film studies. And I'm gonna give you 2 minutes for that, and then it will be time for questions. I'm gonna turn on my timer right now. Meanwhile, I'm gonna check the chat. I saw like people were like
There was one question
Yeah,
Um,
right.
from David Duggar about how much of the music or sound editing is part of the critical assignment for the film.
Perfect. I will answer that after everybody's done with the Padlet. Thank you, David. I don't think 2 minutes is enough for, you don't need to answer each of the questions, by the way. Oh, and yeah, my bad. You need to see the QR code. Twenty-five seconds. All right, time's up. You can keep filling out the form if you the Padlet if you like. I'm gonna go ahead with the questions. So it depends. So I'm also the liaison librarian to music. If it were a music class, I think they would be focusing more on this part. For this course specifically, the professor has a English literature background, so she focused more on what the film is telling you about. She's focused more on analyzing topics and the background of the director, right? So music editing is not touched in this course, but I mean, I would guess it would be a good question for like a filmmaking class. Definitely, they need to focus on not only sound and music editing, but the editing of the whole film. You know, the video, the light, and well, the photography of the movie as well. I do, when I come to the class, let them know that a film, the different components that, like make the film, um, I do let them know there are many ways in which you can approach this. And when you decided to do it from the artistic approach, then you can consider all these other things. Like it's not only the image, it's the music, the sound, the audio, everything else that is there. Yeah, that would be great. The Sound of Metal. I was in a rock concert just recently, and we were talking about that. But anyways, Daniel, yeah, the interview I can share with you after the presentation, or right now. Let me just stop sharing because this is the end of the presentation. I can share with you the link really quick. Let me just stop sharing right here. And let me just also yeah, I'm here. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer to you. I hope. Okay, let me just come on. Why I cannot? Yeah, thank you.
Well, we have no other questions, so we will move on to the last segment of our session today, and that is Daniel DuPont back again with It's All About the Swag, How to Be a Social Book Influencer. Take it away, Daniel.
Sure, let me go ahead and share again. My Zoom, my Zoom. Zoom did its own thing where it minimized everything, and now I can't find it. Okay, there we go. Okay, yay, sharing. Okay, it's all about the swag. How to be a social book influencer, or getting started as a not very good book influencer, which is what I am. So again, I am Daniel DuPont. I'm a librarian and assistant professor at Delgado Community College in New Orleans. I have 3 cat children and 1 human child. I foster parasocial relationships with authors and narrators on Instagram. My goal was to read 122 books this year. I am at 215. So I am not an influencer. I took this screenshot today. Apparently I'm up to 393 followers. Go me. Put 380 on here when I made the slide. I have about 1,200 followers on TikTok. I think I have like 7 on Threads. I don't know. Who cares? I don't mess with YouTube, and I left X when it went to an X and stopped being a bird. So don't be like me. Optimize your profile with keywords. Say more about yourself than an incredibly random quote from a book about a different book. So what I say is literally haunted by the specter of heterosexuality, which is somebody from a book called We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian, talking about the Haunting of Hill House, which is about lesbians. So do something that's less, esoteric than that. Make yourself be interesting to people, and you will get more engagement from publishers, which I do not as much, but I do a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about. So a good influencer uses Goodreads, and then there's me. Don't be like me. I am really not on Goodreads that much. PR reps use Goodreads to identify engaged readers. I did work in publisher PR very briefly, and we did use that. We went on Goodreads and we would scope out who was using Goodreads. Shelving and reviewing books on Goodreads is one of the biggest things you can do to help an author. So if you have an author you really like, especially a smaller author, we're not talking like Stephen King or whoever, we're talking smaller authors. One of the biggest things you can do is shelve and review their books on Goodreads. For most authors, this is a side hustle. They have a full-time gig. I did an author event. It was a book about a librarian during World War II. I have a master's degree in World War history, World War II history, and I am obviously a librarian. And so my friend asked me to, it was like conversation with, and so it was me and this me and this author speaking. And I asked her, I was like, oh, so is this your full-time job? And she was like, no, what she earned on this book that she was doing an actual book tour for, she said would buy her a cup of coffee in New York City where she lives. So for most of them, this is a labor of love. This is a side hustle. Anything, if you enjoy an author, if you enjoy their books, anything you can do to help them is great. So I'm lazy and I mostly stick to Instagram. This is a post I did back in March where I sort of rounded up my favorite books from the first 3 months of the year. This is what I do. You can do you. I only post about what I like, and I don't post about what I don't. Some people will post, oh, I gave this book 3 stars, or I did not finish this book. I don't do that. And this is because, remember, for most authors, this is a side hustle. They make next to nothing, and this is a labor of love. And I'm not telling someone to their face that their baby is ugly. That's not something I'm gonna do. Be genuine, get weird with it, and tag everyone. So I tag anybody that is in that like an author, narrator, anyone. I've started tagging the publishers because that gets you recognition too. And it's also good for the author if you tag their publisher. It's good PR for the author too. I've started just tagging everyone in these posts. And so genuine and weird and also shameless. So here in this first one is me sliding into the DMs of a narrator that I really like. He immediately started following me, so I guess I wasn't too creepy, but he and I have had some chats. He's just like a really great person, and he's just a fabulous narrator. The next one it was absolutely unhinged behavior. I went on Wikipedia and added a character to its HSAM. It's something autobiographical memory, something autobiographical. It's you don't forget anything. It's a real thing. This character has it, and I went in there and added this character to it, and I tagged the author, and now the author and I chat periodically. She was at a romance book convention this weekend, and somebody's like, oh, I'm taking a picture for my friend so-and-so, and she said, oh, I know them. So that made me flip out. I did the Kermit flail. But absolutely unhinged behavior, but being genuine about it and tagging the author. And again, this was my favorite books of June. It's only books I would recommend. I tagged all of the authors and the narrators. And then in the caption, I was explicitly asking for free stuff. There was a book that I really liked that I read that I did not get I wanted to get the audiobook version of it. I was like, hey, y'all, maybe hit me up with the audio version. And then here is this last one. I made a negative statement. So I did not mention book, author, or narrator. I talked about how somebody was, it was an American narrator who was saying, they were repeatedly saying arse. They were being Australian, I think, but they kept saying arse over and over again. And it was killing me. It was destroying me that they were saying this with an American accent because it sounded terrible. And a narrator that I had mentioned in the previous post DM'd me, who I had never really spoken to before. He DM'd me and he wanted to know who I was talking about. And so we had a chat spilling tea about other narrators. So just being really involved with the community and tagging people, but being positive and not putting anybody publicly on blast, I have found to be a very good thing. So how do I get free books and also sometimes free audiobooks? So an ARC, I'm sure everybody knows, but an ARC is an advanced reader copy. It's usually an EPUB or a PDF. Sometimes you get uncorrected physical proofs if you're fancy. I'm not, but I did get one recently, unsolicited. Somebody sent me one in the mail. I was very excited. Or an advanced listener copy in ALC. I get some of those. They're digital audiobooks. Nobody's doing CDs anymore. Mostly, I just ask for them. You go on NetGalley, which is for social readers and reviewers, or Edelweiss. I say Edelweiss because, like I said, I have a degree in World War II history and did a lot of German. Edelweiss for booksellers and librarians. I have a really good rate of getting approvals because of that, because I'm a librarian. So who you are matters. Always be yourself unless you can be a librarian, then always be a librarian. So in both NetGalley and Edelweiss, especially Edelweiss, because I'm a librarian, I get more approvals. Most people I know do not get approvals on Edelweiss. I except for a brief time when Macmillan didn't like me and they were denying everything for some reason. I pissed them off. I don't know. Macmillan was denying everything. Other than that, I have never got denied on Edelweiss. And I'm almost positive because I'm a librarian. And the same goes for NetGalley. I get almost everything I want on NetGalley. And I've also gotten a lot of auto approvals on NetGalley, more so than I should be getting for the kind of following I have. I know people with hundreds and hundreds of followers who do not get the sort of approvals I get. And I think it's because I'm a librarian. So good for you. You're a librarian too. You can get this. So I get books before they're released, sometimes like a year before they're released. You can find the book and ask for the book, and this is how you do it on NetGalley. Search is kind of forked. It's less frustrating to just browse for your favorite categories or publishers. You can request the book, and then it gives you a list of check boxes to let the PR team know why. And then they'll make a decision. You'll get an email. It'll say you get the book. Over here on the side, you can see, you can read it in the NetGalley reader. You can download a protected EPUB, or you can send it to your Kindle, which is what I do. The protected EPUB will expire after a while. Like if you just download it, if you read it in the NetGalley app, but if you send it to your Kindle, it's yours forever. But some books are read now. Start with those. The more books you read and review, the better your ratio, because they want you to have at least an 80% ratio of reviewed books, the more likely your requests will be approved. If you review enough books, you may get publisher auto approvals, which is, yay, you made it. You're on a list on a PR rep's computer as an easy mark. Good job. You can see down here, it says Harlequin Romance, Karina adores. I like them. You are auto approved. So anything that Harlequin Romance puts on NetGalley, I can just download. I do not have to ask their permission to do it. It's just there. I can get it. This one over here, it's Amulet Books, it looks like. I had to request that one. I think that's like a little indie publisher. I don't know who they are anyway. But so they didn't know me. They didn't have me auto approved. I had to request this book. But over here, To Sketch a Scandal by Jess Everly. who she's fabulous. Everybody read all of Jess Everly. Harlequin romance, they like me. Anything Harlequin romance, I can download. So on Edelweiss, I said it was kind of borked for, search was kind of borked for NetGalley. It's incredibly borked for Edelweiss. So you got to use all of the filters, all of the limiters. It's just terrible. You can request a book, and then it gives you a chance to write a little note about why you want to download this book. So here I said that I love Julian Winters. We read his last book in a book club. I want the chance to review his next book as a potential book club pick. That's a lie. I wasn't going to do it as a book club pick, but we did read it in a book club, and I wanted a chance to review it. Some books are just like at NetGalley, how they have the read now ones. Some books are to download. You can start there, so you can start building up this sort of basis of like you can trust me to review books. You may get auto approvals here. I've got some of those. How this works is a lot more mysterious to me. I don't know how or why. And like I said, I think the PR department at Macmillan had a burn book with my name in it. I never used to get approvals from them. That's changed. They seem to like me now. I don't know. And sometimes maybe you won't even ask. I get emails from book PR folks. They just send me emails and say, here's a book, read it. And actual real book influencers get physical PR kits with hard copies and swag and stickers and bookmarks. And there was a book that was released last month and that I really wanted, and everybody was getting these like fans, those like snap fans that you see like the drag queens when they go snap. They were getting all those fans. I really wanted one. Those people are expected, but not required because it's illegal, but they're expected to do more for the work for their review and post in more places. But you can see here, this was Division of Tour Nightlife. Chuck Tingle's new novel. It's a horror novel. They sent it to me and they're like, here, read it. And I read it last week and it was, oh my God, good. And, but I wouldn't have read it otherwise. And then this one, The Shots You Take by Rachel Reed, which I absolutely would have read otherwise, but they sent it to me because I had positively reviewed Rachel Reed in the past. And so they're like, she has a new book coming out. Why don't you go ahead and read her next book? And I was like, I sure will do that. Thank you. And did another positive review. So that is it. Here is again my information about how to find this. It is really just start posting on social media and start, if you want to get free books, just start requesting free books, and eventually you will get free books, and start tagging everyone you can, because eventually they'll start responding to you, authors, narrators, publishers, and you will become weird parasocial friends with them. Yeah, much love for Chuck Tingle. He's great.
All right, so thank you for all of that, Daniel. That was great. I have dropped your link in the chat again for everybody, if you didn't catch it the first time around. So does anybody have any questions for Daniel from this? I haven't seen any in the chat so far, just a lot of love for your gifts and your ideas and a lot of sympathy for your reading list. Brandy comments, shameful admission that I don't read enough, but definitely sharing this with my fellow librarians here at Nichols. You and me both, Brandy, no judgment here.
Let me tell you, audiobooks in the car, when I'm like sitting if I'm at the circulation desk and I don't have to be like super focused on something, that's how I get through so many books, is audiobooks.
I can't be read to. It makes me go to sleep. I have to read them myself.
I do a lot of audiobooks. It's the ADHD, because I can be doing something else.
Yeah.
It's like I need the multiple stimulus.
Let's see. I'm not seeing any questions, just a lot of sympathy, love for audiobooks. So we will, excuse me, move on. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you to everyone who came out and participated, and we hope you'll come back for the remaining sessions of our Information Literacy Forum. Just to remind you, we've got that link for our link tree in the chat, I believe. Yes, Caitlin dropped that in there, as well as the evaluation form to get feedback on today's presentations. Please fill this out so that we know what worked and we can prepare for next year's forum. Finally, if you'd like to rewatch today's presentations, we'll be posting recordings to our YouTube channel. Closed captioning will be generated automatically through Zoom, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at NOLAILC, that is NOLAILC, @gmail.com. And we hope that you can join us for the rest of our conference sessions this week. Take care, everyone, and stay healthy and safe.